Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. Gentlemen, if you are new to this show, the Powerful Man is a movement of men where we help married business owners save their marriage without talking about it and get that look and gleam of love, admiration, respect back in their wife's eye. And today's podcast is going to be no different. Tim, today what I want to talk about is a common thing that guys hear, right? What's going on is they've been married for a little bit. Kids come in the mix, right? And as kids come in the mix, you start managing the daily life, right? You start managing time. My wife and I this morning had a cup of coffee, and I sat down on the couch next to her, and she looked at me, and she was exhausted because our daughter woke up twice last night. And my wife takes care of my daughter. I wake up with my son. That's just how we arranged it. And she was tired. She looked at me, and she's like, "Oh, I feel like we haven't done anything together, or haven't had time to connect lately." Right? Obviously, we got back from the Bahamas. We're going skiing together tomorrow. So it's not all bad. But just in that comment, what she was referring to was the fact that we've spent most of our time managing our life and then taking care of the kids. So we're always around them, which we're very grateful for, and playing with them. But something that happens to a lot of men who haven't been through the activation method, what happens is they grow apart, right? Their wife and them grow apart, and they become strangers in their own home, right? They don't really know each other. They don't know the habits. And a lot of times the wife is on the phone is a common complaint. The guy is too. The guy's checking email or TikTok. The wife's on Instagram, right? What's going on, chatting with her friends. Sometimes that's what erupts into emotional affairs or otherwise. And eventually they're going apart, and the woman looks at the man and says, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you." Those are terms a lot of men have heard, and it's pretty common. So, Tim, I want to talk about that today and how that actually transpires. And then if you guys stay to the end, we're going to tell you about a training that you can get access to that goes through this in much more depth.
Let's do it.
So, Tim, what's your experience in talking to the guys that have been through this situation? How does it start? And then 2, can it be reversed?
I think, how does it start? You kind of alluded to it a little bit, right? I mean, there are various ways it can start, but I think the most dominant or common one with the men within the movement that we see has been a lack of polarity. And what I mean by that is they still love the guy, right? They care for them. And even though they might be arguing with them and things like that, there's still an element of love there, to your point, right? But the attraction has gone. The spark has gone. The excitement has gone. Everything has become a bit routine, a bit dull, a bit boring. Everything's fallen into the realm of roles and responsibilities. The guy goes out, makes some money, comes back. The wife stays at home, usually, with the guys we work with anyway, looks after the kids. And the guy gets back tired, exhausted. He usually stops working out, so he has less energy. He usually is drinking more, so his fitness and his body starts to go away. His sex drive kind of goes down, and then when he goes up and he tries it on, she rejects him, and he just thinks, "Hang on a minute, what's going on here? Well, she should just want to have sex with me. Couldn't she not see the house that I've provided for and how hard I work and how much I love the family and all the sacrifices I make for them?" And at the same time, she feels kind of confused. Why is he trying to own me? Can he not even tell that we are not connected? And then he may think, "Oh, do you know what? I'm going to take her on a date this weekend. If I take her on a date, then I'll get lucky." So he takes her on a date, and they have a good time. And sparks aren't necessarily flying, but there's a little bit more connection than usual. But then they get home, and the woman's just tired. She's exhausted because it's been a late night. She's looking after the kids all week. Don't have sex. The guy goes in a mood, wakes up in the morning, he's in a mood. She's not stupid. She can put 2 and 2 together and realize it was because they didn't have sex. She then feels obligated to have sex. They have sex. It's not a good experience. Neither of them enjoy it. That reinforces a lack of connection, and it just kind of continues, and the relationship neutralizes, And there we go. I love you, but I am not in love with you.
Yep. And it happens a lot, guys. It's that distance, that growing apart. And it's kind of like getting fat, right? You don't like all of a sudden one day, like you're ripped, like you were in college or whatever it is. And then you look down one day, go, whoa, all of a sudden I got the dad bod or I'm fat or whatever else it is. It happens slowly. And because it happens slowly, you don't see it. And this is just what happens in a relationship, the drifting apart. You don't see it at first because one day turns into 3 days. 3 days turns into a week turns into 2 weeks, 2 weeks turns to a month, year. For some guys that we talk to, they haven't had sex in 4, 5, 6 years, some more. And it's not just about the sex, but I know if you're not having sex, odds are you're not connecting, right? The only thing, my wife and I talk about this, the only thing that makes it different between another relationship. So let's say your wife, you listening to this, and her brother or her father, the only different, she loves her father, she loves her brother, she loves you. The only difference is you and your wife have sex, intimacy. It's the only separation from the relationships. And what happens is the intimacy starts to crumble as a byproduct. The intimacy is just a symptom of something else that's happening. There's something else going on. And this is when they start to drift apart. And the wife looks at you and goes, I love you. You're a good provider. You're a good husband. You're a good father to my kids. But the spark's not there. I'm not in love with you. So Tim, the second part of the question, it's a rhetorical one, of course. Can you change that? Yes. Can you get your wife to fall back in love with you?
Yeah, you can. And depending on what's going on and how you've acted and how much mud on the glass may have been built up. And just for you guys that don't know, we talk about mud on the glass. So if you imagine a piece of glass between you and your wife, in the beginning when the relationship is fresh and you're honoring your promises and you have a little bit of a swagger in your step and you're dressing good and you're smelling nice and you're clean shaven and you're working out and you're engaged and you're attentive and you're listening to her and, there's no mud on the glass, right? But then over time, as you start to break a few promises, as you start to get a little bit busier, as kids come into the mix, as things go unsaid, as issues go unresolved, imagine with each one of those, a little bit of mud gets flicked on the glass. And then over time, if that mud isn't cleaned off, eventually you can't see one another. I mean, your wife is still there, and the chances are if she was to go with somebody else, they'd have a similar woman to when you first met her, right? They'd have that fun and excitement. So she is still there. And likewise, so are you. But you just can't see each other for the mud. So you got to clean that mud off the glass. So can this be turned around? Can this spark be reignited? Yes, it can. And the time that it's going to take will depend on how much mud you've allowed to get flicked on that glass. Yeah, you have allowed to get flicked on that glass. You never want it to be your wife has allowed, because then you get to take the lead in this, right? So how much glass you have allowed to get flicked on that. How much mud you have allowed to get flicked on that glass. And that's where I would give the men the clean slate letter. That's one of the things we give them in order to wipe a lot of that mud off so they can actually see one another again. There's still some mud on there, right? From maybe the chest down. But, the head's clear so they can see each other, right? So once you start to take ownership for your side of the street and clean some of that mud off, and I'll just say that use live as a king system because it's, the easiest thing for me to think about right now. It encompasses a few things. Then it starts to create mystery into the relationship, which is part of what fuels desire, right? It starts to create intrigue. It starts to, if you listen to the last podcast, you will have heard us read out one of the comments that one of the men got from their wives. Why? Where has this guy been? It's who I've wanted to see. Why is it taking so long? Like, she was frustrated and sad that she had kind of one foot out the door, but now she's seeing the man. It's reminding her of the man she fell in love with, and she can see that his stock is rising. So as you do that and continue to do it through different means, different ways, be it how you dress, how you look, how you smell. Women are very sensual beings. So how you look, how you smell, how you walk, how you talk, your character that you bring to the relationship plays a big part. And I also inject some lightness and fun as well, right? And we talk a lot about being the CFO, the chief fun officer. To the point, yesterday we were on the office hours call, which for you guys that don't know, that it's a weekly. You won't have to give an explanation every time I say it. It's a weekly call for all the men going through the activation method with myself, Doug, or Arthur, where the men bring the biggest challenge. We help them to overcome it so they can reconnect with their wives. Anyway, point being is one of the guys on there said, "Hey, my wife's always on a phone. Now, what can I do about it?" And we started to talk about him being the CFO and how he had bought him and his wife these dance lessons a few months ago, and they were just sat on the side. So this one evening, while his wife is on her phone, he just grabs his daughter, puts the dance CD on, and says, "Hey, come on." Can't remember her name. I'm sorry if you're listening to this. Let's call her Lucy. "Hey, Lucy, get up. Well, let's dance. Come on." Puts the music on and starts doing the dance lesson with his daughter. Yeah, and he starts having a great time. Great fun. And his wife is missed out. She stayed on the phone, right? Until the dance session finishes. And she's like, "Oh, what was that?" Like, "Oh, never mind." Following day, his daughter's like, "Oh, when are we going to dance again, Daddy?" And his wife's like, "Oh," right? So he starts to re-inject some of that spark and that fun and that lightness and that playfulness that is so important if you want to bring back the spark, right? It's not a logical, responsibility-based spark, right? It's usually a spontaneous, light, fun one that goes hand in hand with the polarity that you create through things like Live as a King system and the emotional safety you can provide for your wife. If you imagine her like a flower, right? You cannot change her, but you can influence the environment that she's in. Right? Like a flower, you can water it, put it in the sunlight, where you position it's important. Similar thing with your wife, not where you position her. Well, that can be important. You can influence the environment, right? And the way that you do that creates emotional safety and security in that place. She's more likely to blossom. So that kind of, well, we call that the triad connection, essentially. The three parts of that: clean slate, Live as a King, hidden motives. And that, well, honestly, that's how the men actually do regain the spark. I didn't plan on giving a little bit of a plug there, but the light bulb went off when I got to the end of it. I'm like, oh, this is the triad of connection. This is what works for the men.
100% of what it is. And you said something that, well, I mean, I agree with everything you said, and I want to add on. It doesn't always end up being spontaneous, guys, especially at first, right? It doesn't like all of a sudden spontaneously you get off the couch, which you haven't done in years, and dance with your daughter. Sometimes you just got to change your state and say, you know what? I'm going to do it. And you plan it out, right? Because it's not new. I mean, yeah, it's new to you. It's not normal for you. And then you do it. And a thing that I hear a lot from guys, Tim, is, I'm just tired after work. Bullshit. Yeah, you're tired, and you get to change your energy, change your state. You can get excited. All right. I get tired. Sometimes I come on this podcast, we start talking about something. I get fired up and I got tons of energy, right? You can change your state and decide you want to do it. I do it with my wife all the time. Just like with this guy was dancing with his daughter, I do it all the time with my kids. All of a sudden I decide, Dad's tired. Oh, I got 2 young kids in my mid 40s. I'm like, no, that's lame. My kids didn't request this, right? They didn't ask for a dad that's tired. Just because, what excuse is that? And I get up and I just change. Let's go. Let's play. I'll dance around with them. I'll pick them up and do airplane or whatever else I'm deciding to do. We do this thing, I call it tossy, where I grab the kids from like 5 feet away and I throw them in the air across the room on the bed. And they love it, right? And I just pick my energy up. Well, if my wife and I are disconnected for any reason and I go into that mode, I'll grab the kids. Let's say I'll grab one of my kids and run them down the hall and I'll just launch them. If you can get a police called on me. I launch them, they love it because they can touch the ceiling. I throw them so high and they're far and they land and they don't get hurt and they love it. And they're giggling and laughing. Well, guess what happens 5-10 minutes later? My wife, who may have been in a bad mood, She wants to be part of the party. She comes in, right? And then I'll joke with her. I go, all right, let me launch mommy, and then I'll grab her. I'll just tickle her and kind of push her on the bed, and she starts laughing. The kids pile on her, right? And this whole energy is just shifted in my house, right? I'm creating that. And you can do that without spontaneity. Sometimes you just got to create it. But you're 100% right. The triadic connection is exactly what it is you got to create mystery. I mean, imagine guys watching the same movie. I don't care if it's your favorite movie, Good Will Hunting. I love that movie, right? But if I watched it every day, God, would I be sick of Good Will Hunting? Within the first week, I wouldn't want to see it again. And for a lot of us, our wife is watching the same movie of our marriage. It's called Our Marriage. Guess what? You wake up at 6 o'clock, you have a cup of coffee at 6:30, you're in the toilet, in the bathroom, making ungodly sounds. Then you come up, you brush your teeth. It's a routine you're in, right? And you get into these routines, they're natural. But you get to create that spark and that mystery again. And what happens 9 times out of 10, so not every time, but 9 times out of 10, it's 90%, is that spark gets reignited by using the triadic connection properly. So as Tim said, right, you are shifting things. Crazy thing happens is usually when guys join the program, for a lot of guys, now this happens a lower percentage. I'm going to guesstimate 30, 40%. When they just sign up for the program and they calendar it out and their wife finds out they're doing something to better themselves, that's enough mystery. Because she's like, whoa, what's going on over here?
Yep.
Because she sees that you're investing in yourself. And who doesn't want to be involved in somebody that's investing themselves? Again, a stock that is rising. She sees you, that your value is rising. What's this program you're getting involved in? There's a guy from the UK or there's a guy from the US. What's this?
And when you don't make a big deal about it either.
Yeah, it just is.
You just do it.
Yeah. And I guarantee certain things and the way you see things in the world are going to start changing. And when you start seeing things differently, then you start acting differently. And the people around you take notice. Your routines may change. Maybe not. Maybe you already have a solid morning rise and shine routine, right? Maybe you already have a solid decompression routine. Maybe you're a communication master and you don't need the the hidden motives technique. Chances are you do. Chances are you need those tools or the live like a king system to make you go. The point is, we have the vantage point, guys, of seeing this almost daily, that men go from a relationship where the wife is not in love with them, loves them, sometimes doesn't love them, and they turn it all around. And so as much as we share some of the hardships that guys are sharing in the movement, we have 10x of the good stories. There can't really converse some of them on a podcast, right? It's just like, hey, let's have a whole podcast on how this guy's completely changed his marriage and is having an amazing time. We had one guy post as an example. He's on vacation with his family and he walked by a guy on 2 laptops. You can picture a guy outside like a coffee shop or a sandwich shop. He's got 2 laptops on vacation, working as fast as he can. And this guy goes, whoa, I remember that when that was me. And now I'm present with my family, with my wife, having an amazing time. Wow, his life changed. So there's a lot of these stories out there. I can assure you guys, it's more common than not from our side of the fence to see men who have gone from hearing from their wife that their wife loves them but is not in love with them, that they can save it. Because if your wife loves you, you have a foundation from which to grow. It's a lot harder, although it can be done, because we see this too. If your wife says, I hate you, I do not love you, and I am not in love with you, that's a harder hill to climb. But men do
if
climb.
She doesn't say anything. At least there's still a little bit of charge there. If she doesn't even say anything and she's stopped arguing and she just checked out, I mean, that's even
exactly.
And even still, guys have reignited the spark from that position too. A little bit harder from that position. Face a few more shit tests.
Yeah.
But the guys have done it. The ones that have been committed anyway.
Yeah, I got to say, so if you're hearing this in your relationship now, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, you have the easiest hill to climb, provided you do the work, provided you use the Triadic connection, provided you follow the system, because we see it all the time. Now, as I said in the beginning of this podcast, guys, I'm going to do a free training on this. So I'm going to do a training on how to get out of this and what you can do. And I'll go into much more depth than we can do on a podcast. All you have to do if you want this is go over to the Facebook group. It's a free group, right? Just go over there and just comment on there. And I'll get you guys a link to whenever I do this. I'm probably going to do this next week. Well, this week that this comes out. So you can probably get a replay of it if you're not available to be there live. Recommend being there live because you can ask questions, right? And asking questions, I will tailor the training to your specific situation the best that I can. You know, we usually get a couple hundred guys on these, and you're going to hear some great guys or probably see some guys in the community not. If you cannot get on the Facebook group for whatever reason, you don't like Meta or whatever else it is, go ahead and email support@thepowerfulman.com. That's support@thepowerfulman.com. Email there and tell them you want the training around this topic. Okay. You got to be specific for them because the people that are over there, you know, they're getting a lot of requests, hundreds and hundreds of requests and questions. So in order for them to best help you, you need to help them by letting them specifically what you're looking for. I will pre-warn them. By the time this comes out, the training might not have happened. So they will give you the date and the time if that's the case for you to attend. So you can be part of that. It's just another way, guys, we're trying to give back to you so you can live your best life and really save your marriage without having to talk about it. Like we say, get that look, that glimmer like you had when you first got married. You know, your wife looked at you with that love, admiration, respect. Like that's the best feeling. We want you guys to have that back. So gentlemen, as always, in the moment of insight, take massive action, and we'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.